and welcome to Defence Watch. Today, we look back at India's finest hour, the total victory in East Pakistan in 1971. On 16th December 42 years ago, after a history of humiliating defeats and foreign rule for nearly 1,000 years, India scored its greatest military victory. At 4:55 p.m., 16th December at Dhaka's race course, Pakistan military forces surrendered. Lieutenant General A.K. Niazi, the force commander, removed his badges of rank, belt and pistol and handed these over to Eastern Army Commander Lieutenant General Jasjit Arora. In a collapse of will, 93,000 soldiers laid down their arms. A new nation was born, marking the second partition of the Indian subcontinent. The breakup of Pakistan was geography's revenge over history. The war victory was the culmination of a 9-month-long politico-military diplomatic campaign. It was the Indian Armed Forces' first integrated tri-service operation, with the Bengali Mukti Bahini playing a decisive role. The war saw the first heli-borne operation, the first big para-drop operation, the first amphibious operation, all these firsts due to the Indian Air Force establishing, again for the first time, air dominance over the operational area. After the North Africa campaign of World War II, this operation, which ended with the largest surrender in any war, was the fastest. The legal and strategic cover for the war was provided by the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation with the Soviet Union before the war. To recall the heroics and encounters of the 1971 war on land, sea and in the air, as well as to sketch the strategic environment, are Brigadier K.P. Singh Deov, AVSM, VSM. He is a former Minister of State for Defence and took part in the 1971 war. Major General Ian Cardozo, Sena Medal of the Battle of Sylhet fame. In fact, he chopped off his own leg with his kukri after stepping over a mine. Air Vice Marshal B.K. Bishnoi, Bar to Veer Chakra, the hero of the Battle of Dhaka. Commodore Ranjit Rai of the Indian Navy, he followed the operations of the Indian Navy in the East. Lieutenant Colonel Sajjad Zahir, author, filmmaker and war veteran of the Bangladesh Army, but more famous for the Mukti Bahini Association. Colonel Ashok Kumar Tara, 14 guards and the hero of Operation Rescue, which resulted in picking out the current Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. So you can see we have a star-studded panel of operational experts who took part in the war in Bangladesh, and notably a Mukti Bahini expert, Colonel Sajjad Zahir. So the best way to start the operation would be to go to Brigadier K.P. Singh Deov and ask him to sketch the strategic environment. In other words, ask him what was the state of play inside East Pakistan then, what was the mood in India, the mood in Parliament, what was the politico-military diplomatic situation here in India, and how did all these events conjugate for this very successful military victory. Brigadier K.P. Singh Deov.
Thank you, General. If I can remember rightly, 42 years back, this was one of the only occasions when the Parliament of India rose like one person under one leader, that was Srimati Indira Gandhi. The entire Parliament, there was no opposition, there was no ruling party, it was Parliament of India, backed by the people of India, and the armed forces had the entire goodwill, having taken part in the operation. The way people treated us in Punjab, as if we were their own children, their own kith and kin. We never went hungry or anything. We never waited for things to come. It was the villagers who helped us in everything during operations. I was in the AD regiment. I was not in the east, but in the west. And the atmosphere in Parliament was that of a strong leadership, backed by everybody.
So this whole thing started by the crackdown, the so-called genocide in East Pakistan on 26th of March, right?
That is it. And it built up in the Parliament to such a crescendo that there was absolute unanimity in our objective, the route, and what we are going to do. Whatever was possible to take the Parliament into confidence was done so, because you can't take Parliament into confidence in everything. And apart from that, the diplomatic activities, the maturity with which the statesman-like leadership was unparalleled.
So there was synergy between the political, the military, the diplomatic, and the people at large. But the trigger for our reaction was 10 million refugees, plus the fact that there was this genocide, the military crackdown by the Pakistan army, unprecedented in the annals of history. Finally then, what happens, because I am told that initially the intelligence agencies and Mr. Kao as well as Mr. Haksar had advised that we should do whatever we have to do through covert means. Is that right?
I wouldn't know about that,
because
we were not privy to intelligence report. But so much so, there was a lot of impatience in Parliament that we must do something to save the people of Bangladesh. But at that time, wiser counsel prevailed, and we delayed it for after the monsoon.
So, Ian Cardozo, you've studied this liberation campaign in great detail. The military crackdown, the 10 million refugees on Indian soil, the cost of feeding 10 million refugees, and also by then a provisional government of Bangladesh is formed in exile at 8 Theatre Road in Calcutta. So, Ian Cardozo, what is the grand plan, the grand aim, the grand strategy?
See, Ashok, military strategy flows from a national strategy. The strategy at that time of the Prime Minister was to convince the world governments to get the refugees back, to convince Yahya Khan to take the refugees back. Unfortunately, the world followed the dictates of America, and this did not happen. So, therefore, the Indian army matched the mood of Parliament, and they were out to liberate the Sonar Bangla shoulder to shoulder with the Mukti Bahini.
So, there were 2 or 3 things that India was then worried about. One was Chinese intervention. The second was that you needed a legal and strategic cover, for which you signed the Treaty of Peace and Cooperation and Friendship with the Soviet Union in July of '71. So, strategically, the aim was, as you said, to create conditions for the return of the refugees, as also to create an enclave where a provisional government of Bangladesh could be set up. Is that right?
That was the initial strategy. But the operation was so successful subsequently that we realized that we need to break through and head for Dhaka. Although Dhaka was not part of the original plan, our operation was so successful that they decided that this was the key to the liberation of Bangladesh.
All right. So, this is just the right time and the right point to transit from the so-called aim to the land operations. Now, what is the essence of the land operation?
See, we will talk about the Pakistani grand strategy and the Indian grand strategy. General Niazi was given two tasks. One, to prevent internal subversion, and the other, to defend against external aggression. So, his intentions and Pakistan's appreciation was that India, as you said, would just about liberate an enclave to get the refugees in. But that did not happen. We went far beyond that. Now, what did Niazi think? Niazi thought just that. And he also thought that China and America would intervene and they would use the good offices of the UN to ensure a ceasefire before India could move any further.
And the code word was our friends in the north, they would keep saying.
Yes, our friends in the north, the yellow in the, I mean, he meant the yellow and the white. The yellow from China and the white from USA.
And also, Ian Cardozo, one interesting feature of the Pakistan strategy was that Niazi always believed that the defense of the East lay in the West. So the holding operation in the West. So can we move now to the turning point or the turning points in the land operations? What do you think? You talked about Dhaka, that Dhaka was not the initial objective, but at a certain point in time, it did turn out to be an objective. As most force commanders, General Sagat Singh and other force commanders have said that it was always at the back of their minds. So what were the turning points in the operations?
The Niazi had depended on his strategy, on the fortress concept, that he would have his defenses forward of the river line based on communication centers and towns. And he thought that India would attack these fortresses and break their heads, and by that time would be wasted, and during that time America and China and the UN would intervene.
So you raise a very important point, and in fact this is the crux of the whole war in Bangladesh, speed of operations, because as Ian Cardozo mentioned earlier, the Pakistanis wanted a ceasefire and we wanted a surrender, and therefore speed of operations was paramount.